Welcome to the Deep Dive. We like to take you on a journey kind of beneath the surface of a topic, And today, we're venturing into a place that's become almost mythical in its infamy.
Mm,
Chernobyl.
yeah.
You might think you know the story, right? The disaster, the HBO series, those stark images of a ghost city. But we're going deeper, peeling back the layers to uncover the history of a town that existed long before that 1986 tragedy.
It's easy to get caught up in just the disaster, the event itself, But imagine a town that's mentioned in the Hypatian Codex,
Right.
a historical document from 1193.
Wow.
That's almost 1,000 years of history, before the world even knew about nuclear energy.
The Hypatian Codex. Now, for our listeners who haven't encountered it, this is like a medieval Wikipedia, a collection of chronicles and stories from the time. So Chernobyl wasn't just some random settlement. It had roots stretching back centuries. What kind of place was it back then?
Well, it wasn't always shrouded in this aura of tragedy. It was a royal hunting ground, a feudal town. It was tied to both Lithuania and Poland. So this wasn't an isolated, backwater. It was a place that was woven into the fabric of empires.
It's amazing to think about generations living their lives in this place, unaware of the future that awaited them. But this early history, it kind of sets the stage in a way, doesn't it?
Right.
It makes the 1986 disaster feel even more tragic, knowing that it wasn't just infrastructure that was destroyed, but a place with such a long and layered past.
Exactly. It's like looking at an ancient tapestry and you see not just the threads, but the hands that wove them, the stories that they held. And then suddenly the tapestry's torn.
And speaking of threads, the historical tapestry of Chernobyl is woven with a surprising amount of diversity. The source mentions Orthodox Christians, Jewish communities, even a group known as the Old Believers. This mix of faiths existing side by side centuries ago, it almost seems like a microcosm of the multicultural societies we see today.
It's a reminder that, even centuries ago, people were seeking meaning, connection, and belonging. And it paints a picture of Chernobyl as a place of convergence, not just of cultures, but of ideas and beliefs.
That's a great point. It's so easy to picture Chernobyl as this desolate, homogeneous place because of the disaster. But this historical diversity, it adds another dimension to the story, doesn't it?
Absolutely. The source even mentions a Hasidic dynasty that flourished in Chernobyl. Imagine that. A community known for its vibrant spirituality, its emphasis on joy, thriving in a place that would later become synonymous with tragedy. It's a stark contrast, but also perhaps a testament to the enduring human spirit.
That's a powerful thought. And it makes you think about how these different communities, with their distinct traditions and beliefs, interacted with each other.
Well, the source paints a picture of both harmony and conflict. There are mentions of churches and synagogues standing side by side, a testament to the potential for coexistence. But then there are also accounts of tragic pogroms that targeted the Jewish population, reminding us of the darker side of human history.
It's heartbreaking to think about the persecution and violence that these communities endured, especially considering the horrors that would later unfold in the 20th century. It makes you realize that Chernobyl's story is not just about the nuclear disaster, but about the complexities of human experience, the capacity for both good and evil that exists within us all.
And it makes the 1986 event even more poignant. It wasn't just a place, a collection of buildings that was destroyed. It was a living, breathing community with a long and complex history.
Right.
A tapestry of cultures and beliefs, hopes and dreams.
And with that, we kind of transition from the vibrancy of Chernobyl's past to the devastating event that forever changed its course. But before we delve into the disaster itself, I think it's important to acknowledge the human element, the lives that were irrevocably altered on that fateful night in 1986.
You're absolutely right. The evacuation, the exclusion zone, the stories of those forced to leave their homes and everything they knew behind.
Yeah.
It's a testament to the human cost of the disaster.
The source mentions the construction of the new safe confinement. This massive structure designed to contain the radioactive remains of that destroyed reactor.
Right.
It was recently completed, an incredible feat of engineering. But beyond the technical marvels, it's also a stark reminder, a physical manifestation of the scale of the disaster.
It really encapsulates that duality of the situation. It's a symbol of both the human capacity for destruction and our ability to find solutions to mitigate the consequences of our actions.
And it leads us to a question that we'll explore in more depth. What becomes of a place like Chernobyl after such an event? Is it a place forever frozen in time, a ghost town shrouded in tragedy?
Or, as we'll uncover, is there a different story waiting to be told? A story of resilience, of nature reclaiming what was lost, of a complex relationship between humanity and the environment.
Hmm.
And that brings us to the name Chernobyl itself. It's a word that evokes so much, right?
Right.
But its origins are actually rooted in nature.
I've always been curious about that. What does Chernobyl actually mean? It sounds almost lyrical in a haunting kind of way.
Yeah. There are a few theories. One suggests it comes from the Ukrainian words for black and either grass or leaves.
Okay.
So Chernobyl might mean black grass or black leaves. It's almost like a poetic foreshadowing, isn't it?
It's chilling, really. This name that now signifies disaster, actually describing the local flora, it's almost like the place itself was trying to tell us something.
Yeah. It's interesting how language can evolve and take on new meanings over time. And there's another theory that links the name to the Ukrainian word for wormwood.
Wormwood. That's a name that definitely fits the post-disaster imagery. It's a bitter herb, often associated with sorrow and even curses in literature.
It certainly adds a layer of symbolism to the whole story. This plant, known for its bitterness, growing in a place forever marked by a bitter event. It's almost like something out of a Gothic novel.
It's like nature itself is mirroring the human experience. This beautiful but harsh landscape, with this plant that's both medicinal and poisonous, thriving in the shadow of this technological catastrophe. It really makes you think about the complexities of our relationship with the natural world.
Yeah, it's a reminder that nature operates on its own timescale, indifferent to our ambitions and our tragedies. And speaking of nature, I think it's time we address the elephant, or rather, the wolf in the room.
You mean the fact that wildlife is thriving in the exclusion zone? It's almost counterintuitive, isn't it? You'd think a place so heavily contaminated would be devoid of life. But the opposite seems to be true.
The source mentions wolves, foxes, even bears roaming the abandoned streets and buildings. Imagine that. These creatures reclaiming a space that was once dominated by human activity. It's like something out of a post-apocalyptic film, but it's actually happening.
It is a bit surreal, isn't it? It makes you wonder if nature is somehow healing itself, reclaiming what was lost. The source even mentions endangered Przalski's horses thriving in the area.
It's quite remarkable. These horses were once on the brink of extinction, and now they're finding refuge in this strange post-human landscape. It challenges our assumptions about what constitutes a thriving ecosystem, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It makes you question what progress really means. We built this power plant, this symbol of technological advancement, and it led to this catastrophe. And now, in our absence, nature is flourishing in a way that's both beautiful and unsettling.
It's like nature is simultaneously erasing and preserving the memory of what happened. And it raises the question, what is the long-term fate of the exclusion zone? Will it remain a wildlife sanctuary, a testament to the power of nature to reclaim what we've damaged?
It's a fascinating dilemma, and one that we'll explore further as we go deeper. Before we move on, I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier, the people who still work and reside in Chernobyl. I can't imagine what it must be like to live in a place that's still grappling with the aftermath of such a disaster.
It takes a certain kind of resilience, a certain dedication to a place. These individuals, whether they're scientists, maintenance workers, or those in administrative roles, they're living testaments to the enduring human connection to place, even in the face of adversity.
It reminds us that Chernobyl's story isn't just about the disaster itself. It's about the lives that were lived there before and the lives that are still being lived there, in a way, now.
And it brings us back to those poignant "owner lives here" signs that the source mentioned. These simple declarations clinging to abandoned homes speak volumes about the hope, the longing for a return to normalcy that still exists.
Those signs are like whispers of the past, reminders of the lives that were disrupted, the dreams that were put on hold. It's both heartbreaking and inspiring.
It speaks to the complexity of the human experience. Even in a place marked by such tragedy, there's still this enduring sense of hope, this desire to reclaim what was lost.
And that leads us to another layer of Chernobyl's story, one that often gets overshadowed by the disaster itself, the story of the old believers. The old believers. It feels like we're stepping even further back in time into a world that most people don't even know existed.
Yeah.
Who were these people, and what were they doing in Chernobyl?
Well, as the source explains, the Old Believers were a group that split from the Russian Orthodox Church back in the 17th century.
Yeah.
They clung fiercely to their traditional rituals and beliefs. They refused to accept the reforms that were sweeping through the church at the time. Imagine a group so devoted to their traditions that they were willing to face persecution and exile. rather than compromise their faith.
Wow. It speaks to a deep sense of conviction, doesn't it? This
Mhm.
unwavering belief in the face of pressure and opposition. It's a powerful story, especially considering that they were living in a place like Chernobyl, which, as we've discussed, had already seen its fair share of upheaval and change.
Exactly. And their presence adds another dimension to the pre-disaster history of Chernobyl, reminding us that even in a place that would later be defined by a single event, there were these complex and often hidden narratives playing out. These old believers, with their ancient traditions, living alongside the other religious communities, it paints a picture of a place that was far more diverse and layered than we might initially imagine.
It makes you think about how many other stories, how many other threads of history were abruptly cut short on that fateful day in 1986, stories that we might never fully know.
It's a sobering thought, a reminder of the fragility of human existence and the enduring power of place. And it makes the act of remembering, of uncovering these hidden stories all the more important.
Speaking of uncovering stories, it's almost as if Chernobyl itself has a history of being overlooked or misunderstood. I mean, even before the disaster, it wasn't exactly a place that was on the world's radar, and then in an instant, it becomes this global symbol of catastrophe.
Hmm. That's a fascinating observation. It's as if Chernobyl has always existed in this liminal space, caught between obscurity and infamy. And perhaps that's part of what makes it so captivating, this sense of a place that has been both hidden and revealed, a place where history and tragedy have intercepted in such a profound way.
It's like looking at a photograph that's been partially obscured, the edges blurred, the details lost in shadow. And as we delve deeper, as we peel back the layers, we begin to see a clearer picture emerge. A picture that's both beautiful and heartbreaking.
And that picture is still being painted, even today. The exclusion zone, the wildlife that has returned, the people who still work and reside there. It's a testament to the resilience of life, the enduring power of nature, and the complex relationship between humanity and the environment.
It's been an incredible journey exploring Chernobyl beyond the headlines, beyond the disaster. We've gone from ancient history to the nuclear age, from stories of displacement and loss to glimmers of hope and renewal.
And I think what we've discovered is that Chernobyl is more than just a place. It's a story, a tapestry woven with threads of history, culture, tragedy, and resilience. It's a reminder of our capacity for both creation and destruction, and the enduring power of the natural world.
As we wrap up our deep dive, we leave you with this final thought. What does the future hold for Chernobyl? Will it remain a ghost town, a monument to human error, or will it evolve into something else entirely? A place where nature and human history coexist in a new and unexpected balance. The answers may lie not in the past, but in the choices we make today and the stories we choose to tell about this complex and captivating place. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the heart of Chernobyl.